It's Sandra Pike from Royal LePage Atlantic and the Pike Group, and we're with Real Talk, and I can't forget my co-host. She didn't make the last episode we had. She only came in partway through, and she has to have her little coat on because
she's cold?
Yes, and God love her, she's almost 16 now. And thank you, Andrew. So today we have Andrew Giles joining us, Vice President over at Brunello Estates.
That's correct.
Great subdivision, by the way.
Thank you.
So the hot topic that's been in the news for the past few weeks, with the fires, were egress subdivisions, like having two exits.
Correct.
So talk to me about that. Like, is that normal standard procedure here in Halifax for our developments to have the two exits?
Yeah, I guess as I mentioned to you earlier, I've been doing development for probably 25 years in HRM, and we've always had the conversation about two accesses in and out of subdivisions. It's been in the HRM Red Book ever since I can remember. The first version of the Red Book, I think, came out in early 2000s. So it's not like something that they've recently added. It's been in the mix for quite a while. A lot of times when you're doing developments in HRM, when it comes to this access issue, you'd be looking at that kind of stuff at the concept plan stage, or if you're doing a master plan community, you'd be looking at that type of access issue at that time. So it's early on in the planning stage. It's not something that just kind of comes along after the fact. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there are challenges with making connections because you may not own the land next to you. It may be another developer or something like that. So you always leave road reserves at certain intervals and that type of thing for future connections. But in the Red Book, there is or a cap, I guess, at 100 units and 300 units. So there's instances where they'll allow you to do 100 units on a single access, and then up to 300 with a second access and beyond. So it's certainly limited in there.
So the biggest concern, that there wasn't two access or exits in the Westwood Hills area. And you said that there was, and I had no idea. I mean, I can't tell you how many homes I sold in there, and I just go in one way, and I come out the other way. So
yeah. Well, as I said to you, there's certainly Westwood Boulevard that goes in, and then I think that was the main access for a while. But then Winslow also comes out onto the Hammonds Plains Road, which I don't know. I think it was another developer or something that had the property adjacent and made the second connection, which kind of connected all the streets in Westwood together. But there are certainly two access points that come down onto Hammonds Plains Road.
So do they have to be, the exits have to be a certain distance from each other, or what makes them egress?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a specific dimension on that. I think a lot of time it just comes down to how you can get the two accesses out. I know you wouldn't want to have two, very close together, but certainly there's no, I don't think, physical dimension that says you have to be so far apart. But it would be all reviewed during the concept stage or the master planning stage for sure.
So what would be the difference between serviced and unserviced lots in that case?
Yeah, so that's a very good question actually, because in service subdivisions where you have municipal water and sewer and you have smaller lots per se, a lot of the times you're, let's say, chasing looping of water and that kind of stuff, which is more economical if you put it in the street. So I would say in service subdivisions you have probably a lot more than two accesses in and out, just due to the way the development unfolds. Mm-hmm. But in unserviced subdivisions, which is more where you have individual well and septic, the services are contained on the lot. So you're not chasing pipes in the street or anything like that. And, you end up with the larger lot type development, acre and a half, 2 acres that are treed and that kind of stuff. So it's much easier in service subdivisions, or you'd see more than two accesses in a service subdivision. In unserviced, you probably have to give it more thought and, look at your road network and lot layout and that kind of stuff for sure.
So, just before we decided to meet today, like I was going over different articles and, it's very unclear, I think, to most people that I would say most or if all subdivisions would have two access points then?
Yeah, I would be hard pressed to find some that don't, I think. When I think around to the ones I've been involved in, which have been a lot,
Yeah.
sometimes the road network that subdivisions tie into, so, for example, Hammonds Plains Road or going down the eastern shore of the number 7 highway, like, it's just a long linear spine, and then you have developments off of that, which you can have one or two accesses onto, but a lot of them come to a one spline type road, like a collector road, similar to Hammonds Plains Road and that type of thing, where, if there's, an issue somewhere on that artery, then you've kind of, you're sick. You can have two accesses out of the subdivision, okay, but then if you've got an incident on a main artery, well, sometimes you can't get through or something like that, so.
So you talk about the Red Book and, that was mandated to have the two exits. Now with, the recent, development of the fire and what had happened, and they are on service lots. Do you see it changing? Like, how could you put in fire hydrants, for example? I mean, I'm sure that was probably a detriment not having, accessible, ready water to go.
Yeah, so in the unserviced subdivisions, a lot of the time they'll put dry hydrants in, which are the ones that are kind of into a lake that a fire department can hook onto, but that's only to fill their tanker trucks.
Yes.
So then they have to take the truck to the fire and you have to kind of shuttle water, which is time consuming. And I guess I'm not a fireman, but when you're fighting a fire, I think time is everything. So, so that's one thing that, we've always done in unserviced subdivisions. Providing piped water and sewer, well, you have to be close to a supply. Like in the Hammonds Plains area, the Pockwalk transmission mains feeding Halifax and everything come right through there. So there is some areas, I think in Kingswood and maybe elsewhere, that have water service, but it's not everywhere out there for sure. But just back, touch on the unserviced type development. If you remember back to the regional plan that came out in 2006, that was a mechanism that kind of started to get HRM away from doing unserviced subdivisions like White Hills and Westwood Hills. And the municipality at the time were looking at the cost of servicing those types of developments, not so much servicing with water and sewer, but just plowing of roads and garbage. So, and then they kind of made the growth targets. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but it was like 25% they were trying to get downtown, 50% suburban, and then 25 rural. So it was back in 2006 or 7 that change had started to come. And if you look back, there really hasn't been a whole lot of unserviced developments since then. There was some grandfathering that happened, like Indigo Shores and some of those, where they were allowed to do 25 lots a year. But if you think back, there hasn't been a whole lot of new unserviced developments since the 2006 and 7. It's mostly been in the service side of things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that one.
Yeah.
Would it be totally off the wall? So, again, just a question.
Yeah.
When I build a house on an unserviced lot, I have to do a drilled well.
Yeah.
Do you think that they would make a developer do drilled wells where fire hydrants should be, and then the fire hydrant could hook up to that well? I mean, that could be just totally crazy.
Yeah, no, it's, I think it would become a supply issue. I mean, wells you can get some water out of, but when you're fighting a fire, you're taking huge volumes of water. I'm not sure there would be enough capacity in the wells. I mean, I'd have to talk to like a hydrogeologist or something. Yeah, it's a valid question, I guess. I don't know how practical it would be, and cost, it would probably be cost prohibitive for somebody doing a development, but yeah, it's certainly, all options are always on the table when it comes to safety, for sure.
Do you think there could have been anything differently done with that subdivision, Westwood Hills or, those areas?
No, I don't think so. You plan for two accesses. You can plan, for like an accident at an intersection or that, but planning for a wildfire is, something we've never seen really here in Metro before. I mean, we've had maybe some in Eastern Passage and one out, I think, Herring Cove Way, where
Yep.
there was
I remember that one.
only a few houses lost. But, I just don't know how you plan for that kind of stuff. I actually think the municipality had done a decent job in requiring the two accesses, and they got everybody out. I don't know what was happening that day, but there was no loss of life, which I think
know,
is
thank
huge,
goodness. Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So it's terrible that houses got lost, but whoever was doing the evacuations and how all that was unfolding, because it would happen so quick, like that
Oh,
thing was
yeah.
just rushing. So no, I don't see, wouldn't see anything different that I could think of.
No, I think you're right. I do believe they did a good job. And again, there was going to be some tragedy,
Yeah.
of homes being lost and pets. But I think, if you look at the big picture, how many people were
14,000 or
yeah,
something?
14 to 16,000,
Yeah.
and only to have 150 homes. We're really
Oh,
lucky.
I think it was, it could have been a lot worse, I guess I would say, for sure,
Yeah,
for
absolutely. Well, I don't want to take up much more of your time, but thank you for clarifying that, because when I'm reading the articles, I'm thinking, how could they not have two exits? That was my thought for sure.
sure. Yeah, I
And-
heard that too, and I was thinking in my head, I'm not sure where that's coming from, but as we looked, there were certainly Winslow and Westwood Boulevard there, so.
Yeah. So hopefully, we're going to get you, with Brunello Estates, you have some new areas opening up there.
Yes, absolutely, in
That will pop
September,
up there.
so,
September, that's
yeah, so you'll be coming out for a visit.
absolutely 100%. So
Sounds
thank
good.
you so much for today.
Thanks, Sandra, bye.